As the beautiful obituary in the newspaper said, Howard was a father and husband and uncle and restaurant owner. He was also Benny the Bull. Yes, that Benny the Bull. Howard passed away November 27th. His spirit and legacy lives on through his wife Paulette and his daughters and son-in-laws Joey and Michael, Annie and Scott. Other recipients of his bedtime stories, odd jokes, and goofy tales are his grandchildren Evan and Sophie, Bryn and Rory. He's also survived by his best friend, his sister Carol. He is also remembered by his occasional partner in crime and always brother-in-law Jeff. And if we're being honest, Howie has many, many people who will remember him because he was kind, funny, and would give you the shirt off his back or a second or third or fourth chance. He was the owner of Sam and High's Deli and Skokie and a purveyor to many of Chicago's finest restaurants. He made friends wherever he went, no matter whom he was talking to. Howie was the kind of man who bought a Corvette for himself, but the license plate was his daughter's names. Howie would, with very little prompting, tell you everything about a nearby railroad, Chicago history, or the origin of the food that you were eating. He will be remembered as being unforgettable. Unforgettable. Death has taken our beloved Howard. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Howard's love that united us in life which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path which now continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious, precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator in joy as in sorrow, in light as in darkness, in life and in death. Psalm 121. Esai enai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. No matter what faith tradition we may be from, there's one psalm out of the 150 psalms that speaks to all of us. It's the 23rd psalm. It's used by all religions as words of comfort, helping us navigate a new path without an unforgettable guide. The words of the 23rd psalm are so beautiful in Hebrew. Adonai ro'i lo aksar beno desha yarbitzeni almei menuchot yenachaleni nafshi yashovev. In English, we are reminded that God is with us no matter what. In English, we're reminded that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, meaning that there's a before, there's the period through it right now. And all of you in the front row wearing these amazing Illinois shirts know that you're walking through that valley. But you're not walking alone, because there are so many people here behind you that are walking with you and will continue to walk with you each and every step along the way. There are so many people here that were touched by his kindness, by his goodness, by his quirky sense of humor, by his love. And we walk this path with you. Please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Howard was unique. He was funny. He was opinionated. He was quirky. He was silly. He was smart. He was opinionated. He was hardworking. He was caring. He was warm. He was always helpful. Did I say he was opinionated? So opinionated that he wrote numerous op-ed pieces to the Tribune and got them published. He was social. He talked to everybody. He was a foodie, a huge Illini sports fan, a huge sports fan, a man with a sharp tongue. He was, is, and will always be Benny the Bull. We gather here today in sadness, but we gather here today to celebrate a life that was well lived. We measure lives not in time, but in grace and the joy with which they live and the love that they leave behind. Howard leaves so much love behind with all of you, with children and grandchildren, with son-in-laws who were just like sons, and with an amazing and very tolerant wife. And so many friends. We're going to soon hear from those closest to him. We're going to pay tribute. A man who did not like organized religion at all and did not want this. And so to acknowledge that, Illinois sweatshirts are perfect. The pictures here instead of a casket, perfect. The beautiful pictures we saw on the screen, perfect. And to gather with family on Black Friday, but to know that we celebrate a life that was remarkable, unforgettable, truly joyous. We're grateful. For those who are here in this room right now, we thank you for being here. For those who are live streaming the service, we thank you, especially his sister in Arizona, family and friends around the country. We gather today to celebrate a life. Birth is the beginning, Rabbi Alvin Fine writes, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and often back to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat until looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not in some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death the destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. Howard came into this world on August 8th, 1944. and left this world on Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. Neither one of those two dates are important. But the small little dash between those two dates, that's what he would want to focus on. That's what he would want you to focus on. Because that dash represents all the time he spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we can just slow down enough to consider what is true and what is real, and always try to understand the way that other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that our special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? 80 years is a long life, but it's not long enough. It never is long enough, because we always want a little more. But we reflect upon Howard's 80 years with joy and with laughter. And so we turn to those closest to him. In a book called God Whispers, it's written, the true worth of a life is the story that it leaves behind. Tell that story well. Did he teach you about love? Absolutely. Did his life warn you of the danger of bitterness and anger? Absolutely. As I stand and behold the eyes of those who mourn, I realize the only difference between people in this world is not their wealth, their fame, or their success. The only difference is those that had love in their life and those who did not. Howard Teddy Kirschner had love in his life from the day he came into this world until his very final breath. And in the end, that's really all that's important. So I begin with Annie and Joey. I begin with the two of you to come forward to begin to share and speak from your hearts about your dad.
Oh, God. There's a lot of people here. Come closer.
You got this.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Annie, the baby of the family, and most recently crowned favorite daughter by my dad. He even changed the contact information in his phone to say favorite daughter instead of Annie. In reality, it was a joke in our family because Joey was always his favorite. But she wasn't COVID compliant, and I was, so I tipped the scales. Everyone has their own memories and feelings about my dad. Some good, let's be honest, probably some not so good. He wasn't always perfect, but I think we can all agree he was unique and one of a kind, and I'm so grateful he was mine. To try to sum up my dad in a few paragraphs would be impossible. He was so many things: funny, silly, very quirky, creative, smart, definitely OCD, and definitely opinionated, very opinionated. My dad and I had a special relationship. Now that I think about it, it sounds a little weird. We loved puppets, silly characters, and I was the lucky winner who got his gene of making inanimate objects come alive. For example, and I can't believe I'm sharing this, but in college, I had a marshmallow peep in the shape of a pumpkin that was so cute and had its own personality that I wouldn't dare eat it. Instead, it stayed alive on my dresser for several years, becoming hard as a rock. My dad and I watched Pee Wee Herman every Saturday morning and loved all the characters in the Playhouse. It wasn't unusual for us to try and imitate their voices to each other. I told you, weird. He gave me an odd love of mascots, which I attribute to growing up with Benny the Bull. My proudest moment in kindergarten was when it was my turn for show and tell, and my dad came in dressed as Benny and let all the kids try on the head. I felt really cool, but I felt pretty bad for the kid who went after me with the pet rock. Growing up, my dad and I shared a hairbrush, which was appropriately named the Anyhow brush. We used that brush loyally until I came home from school with lice and we had to say our goodbyes. For us, this was a great loss. Most nights, we brushed our teeth together while my dad hummed the toothpaste race song, "Whoever brushed the fastest and spit first won." I lost most of those races, but I've never had a cavity, so maybe I was the real winner. My dad made my Pink Panther doll, otherwise known as Pinky, come alive with a voice and great dance moves. And I thought it was normal. I thought every kid had a stuffed animal with a backstory. When I met Bryn and Rory, they were 4 and 7. Never having kids of my own, but wanting to make a connection, I did what I knew best. I made their dolls come alive. Now, Winky can shake his hips, and Ducky can shake his booty. I never thought I wanted to be like my dad until then. My dad and I have countless inside jokes and silly things that we shared. To most people, they wouldn't make any sense, but to us, they were everything and gave us the special connection we have. My dad was one of my biggest cheerleaders. He encouraged me to go to college at Arizona and take a chance when most people said it was too far and my parents shouldn't send me. When I wanted to move to California after college and was scared to tell my parents, instead of saying no, he gave me the encouragement to try. "What's the worst that could happen," he would say, "so you'll come home." I still don't think he understands what I do as a principal HR business partner for a third-party logistics company. I swear I think he thinks I work in a call center. Not that there's anything wrong with working in a call center, but most importantly, I know he was proud of me. We would talk often about how it may have taken me longer to get my footing, being in the right city with the right job and finding Scott. That took a really long time. But he came with Bryn and Rory, so I was able to catch up quickly. I wanted my dad to be with me forever, but I know he is at peace seeing my story unfold until this point. He knows I will be okay. Maybe not today or for the foreseeable future, but I'll be okay. I love my dad more than you could ever know, and I can't imagine living life without him. At 46, I still rely on him for so many things. Family was his greatest joy, and everything he did, how hard he worked, was for us. He loved us all fiercely, and his legacy will be lived through all of us. My dad was unforgettable in life, and he will be unforgettable after. I love you, Dad. Rastufu. That's I love you in moon language.
I just want you to know she wanted to go first because she didn't want to follow me. It's really unfair. Okay. First, I want to thank everyone for coming today. The past week has been a roller coaster of emotions, and I want to share some special things about my dad. He and I shared a special bond. As most of you know, my dad was, let's just say, a little spirited about a lot of things. He always said I tamed him. If anyone, usually my family, needed to get my dad to cooperate or concede to their wishes, my mom or my sister would reach out to me to persuade him. They knew he couldn't and usually wouldn't say no to me. As a little girl, we would always cuddle and watch cartoons. Popeye, Woody Woodpecker were probably at the top of his favorites. His phone still has the Woody Woodpecker ringtone. He loved the Three Stooges. He taught me to drive when I was way too young, so when I took the car, he was pretty mad, but not really that mad, because I really couldn't do anything worse than he did. He had a hot dog stand named Joey's Piccalilli Circus. We had special bedtime routines, special songs to brush our teeth and tie our shoes, and as we got older, he had songs for going to work. Everything in our house had a name: pillows, stuffed animals, and even his pocket knife, Lamar. It made throwing things away difficult because everything was a person with a relationship and a personality. Salmon Highs. He would let me be the cashier or the hostess. I loved going with him to the market on Randolph Street to buy food for the week. He went every Wednesday. I'm not sure how I survived without becoming a vegetarian. Benny the Bull. I would go with my dad into the locker room before and after the games. He would walk all the kids around the stadium, sneaking a sip of beer here and there from people he knew through the straw he kept in his costume. He would randomly appear at our office and just hang out in the kitchen. He would eat from the buffet of snacks and talk to anyone passing through. We had an endless supply of meat. Because he was a food distributor, he always got the turkeys for Thanksgiving for me and my friends, cases of hamburgers, steaks, or chicken. God forbid we pay retail. We had to buy a chest freezer to store the 10-pound cases of whatever he picked up and brought home. Sunday night dinner at our house became a huge tradition we all looked forward to. We knew that despite how busy everyone was, we would always be together on Sundays. These nights were something. Conversations were often filled with heated debates about politics or world affairs, all of us watching 60 Minutes on the couch. He loved my kids, Sophie and Evan. He loved Michael as his own son, and he always had my back. He loved introducing me to his friends. He made it very clear how proud he was of me. He loved that I was a lawyer, and he loved to tell people. He was uniquely funny, coming up with daily riddles and jokes for all of us to try and solve. His fashion was definitely something. He was never without his green vest and crazy necklace with SpongeBob and Gumby and a pocket watch. He told everyone he was Flava Flav. He was unapologetically himself. Amazing storytelling. He loved sharing stories about his childhood, his family. Whenever we were together with my Aunt Carol and cousins Bruce and Jane, they reminisced on mischief they created as kids. You would just sit there and listen with tears streaming down your face from laughing so hard. He always wanted us to know where we came from. He also loved talking about the history of the city of Chicago. He wouldn't miss the opportunity to write into the Tribune with an opinion piece about something they covered. He always had opinions, lots and lots of opinions about everything. He loved trains, jazz music, Corvettes, having breakfast with his friends, the random animals that appeared at his bedroom window, whipped cream swans, root beer floats, trips to Dairy Queen or Dairy Bar, coffee cake from Schlegel's Bakery, and he loved watching the Illini. He had millions of friends, stayed in touch with everyone from elementary school, Mather High School, and college at the University of Illinois. He loved to watch and observe the world around him, seeing things in his own unique way. We have been receiving lots of messages and stories of funny moments. Please keep remembering.
Sophie and Evan, I invite you to come forward.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to speak for Evan too. Okay, so our papa was a very unique papa. He always had jokes and characters which would make everyone laugh. He never took anything too seriously either. He taught us that it's okay to act like a child. Papa also always cared. He always showed up for us. He often would pick us up from school, which he called prison, and drove us to different activities. He always made sure to tell us stories and connect with us on each car ride. One recent memory of Papa was last Thursday. It was dark out and cold, and I was on my way back from class. I called him, and he just kept me company on my walk home. Without me even asking, he stayed on the phone the whole time, and you could just tell he was happy to be on that phone call. And this is just one example of his caring side. Papa had traits that we'll take everywhere. Some of these include being everyone's friend, helping people, and being yourself. Even in the end, Papa was introducing Mr. Mouth, his hand characters, to others. He was such a family man above all, which we will take with us. We realize how lucky we have been to spend every Sunday home as a family. It's not so common to see your Papa every week, and we are so happy we got the opportunity to. Papa often sat at the head of the table, and we could tell he was so thankful to always be there with us. We are so lucky for the years we've gotten to grow up with a great Papa, and we will always remember him. Thanks.
Terry Michaels, I invite you to come forward.
So my story begins 60 plus years ago at the Pylam House of the University of Illinois. My fraternity brothers and I would walk in. We'd see this guy sleeping on the floor. Most of us didn't know him, and we would either walk over him, we'd walk on him, we'd kick him. He never moved. Fast forward a few years, and Bobby and Paulette were teaching together, and I had to drop off some papers with Paulette. I knocked on the door, Howard answered, and we both said, "I know you." Howard was creative, goofy, sometimes opinionated, but we accepted each other unconditionally. Like brothers, we loved each other, and there was nothing we wouldn't do for each other. There are so many thoughts and stories that come to mind, but I just want to share a few. Many years ago, pre-MJ, Howard was Benny the Bull, and I was fortunate to have Bulls tickets then. Jenny was frequently with us at the games, and maybe there were 2,000, 2,500 people there, but Howard always had Jenny, Joey, and Annie on the floor. Howard owned Salmon Highs. Throughout my career, I've seen many businesses, but I quickly realized the restaurant business was one of the worst. However, Howard was in his glory, working the room, greeting all the customers. He loved listening to their stories, and he loved telling his stories. We enjoyed a lot of traveling together. I especially remember our first road trip to Canada many, many years ago. We were going to be carefree and not make any advance reservations. Little did we know that our first night was Canadian Independence Day. We finally ended up in a hotel where Howard and Paulette slept in a conference room, and Bobby and I ended up in a banquet room. About 10 years ago, we drove to Cooperstown and the Hudson River Valley. We didn't tell Howard about our return route because we were going to surprise him and stop at the Train Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania. About 50 miles away, Howard saw a sign advertising the museum, and all of a sudden he perked up and said, "Let's go there." And then there are Monday night dinners when Bobby and Paulette were busy, and even when they weren't busy. We always found the godforsaken places that Bobby and Paulette wouldn't go to. Holiday gatherings or non-holiday gatherings at our house or Howard and Paulette's or at Joey's or Annie's were family. On Shabbos, we talk about our miracles for the day of the week, day or the week. And this week, my miracle is the gift of memory for all the memories we shared. Buddy, I love you and I will miss you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bruce, I invite you to come forward.
Thank you. Let me get it here. What can I say? Well, I can start by saying good afternoon. And everybody said thank you for being here. I'm going to second that. First, I want to express my sincerest and deepest condolences to Paulette and Joey and Annie, Evan and Sophie, Michael and Scott, and excuse me, I forget your daughter's names. Carol and Larry, Judd, Griffin, and Owen, and Jeff, Howard's brother-in-law, and he was really my oldest friend. You know, we've known each other. We've known each other 60 years. I don't see him, unfortunately. Howard was a devoted husband, father, grandfather, brother, and all the other associated things that a family, would have. And he was a true friend to everyone he met. Absolutely without question. He would be astounded how this room has filled up for him. And there's Jeff back there, I see him. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce Samuels. I am the son of Merrill Samuels. I know somebody contacted me, and I know people knew my father, as they called him Uncle Merrill, and nephew of Sylvia Kirschner. Howard, Carol Slifka, and Jane Steinberg are my first cousins. My father had the honor of being at their wedding as his best man. I was there, a lot younger and better looking back then. Thank you, and it was really privileged to attend. Howard was like a big brother to me, and so some of you know me a long time. If I didn't have Howard, and if I didn't have the other family members from the Samuel side, I don't know I'd be here talking to you today. They literally, it was a hard childhood. Howard had sharp wit, incredible sense of humor. He was a joy to be around. He had a unique ability, the smile, right? He had a unique ability to make everyone around him happy and comfortable, okay? Howard, none of us expected to be here today. Surrounded by your family and friends, it's a good showing. We're here mourning your loss. Joan and I will always cherish the time we spent together back in July, because we have not seen each other in a long time, and we will those memories will remain close to our heart. As I stand here, literally, come back here. As I stand here, numb and in disbelief, I find comfort in knowing you're at peace. Please say hello to my father on the other side. Though knowing him, he might make quite the entrance when you least expect it, like crashing through the pearly gates. Okay, Howard, you are one of a kind. You will be deeply missed, and I love you. Thank you very much.
Words by Alan Shapiro, offered by his daughter Suzanne.
Am I going to be the only one crying up here? Hi, I'm Suzanne, Alan Shapiro's daughter. I'm speaking on behalf of my dad today because this is just, he's just so dumb. This is too difficult for him to do himself. My dad is short and straight to the point, and these are his words. Howard and I met in the 3rd grade. I often told him that he and I moved on to the 4th grade, but he was emotionally still in 3rd grade. That was the fun part. He had a playful, natural tendency to make jokes about many things and yell at virtually everything, all the while being unpredictable and resulting in the well-known question, "Where's Howard?" Unfortunately, those characteristics led to a grade school detour to Bateman School as a reward for his antics. He was loyal, noisy, and clearly deserving of his nickname, How Weird. I will miss him. Okay. I'm done.
That was absolutely perfect. Howard came into this world born to Sylvia and Joe along with his amazing sister Carol. The two were best friends and talked every day up until this last week. We're so sorry, Carol, that you can't be with us today, but you're here in spirit. Your extended family was always very close, and with Howard growing up, you were always laughing. He was, as you heard, mischievous, a troublemaker. His grammar school teachers didn't quite know what to do with him. And the fact that he still is in 3rd grade is a perfect statement. By the time he got to Mather, he found himself. Thanks to you, Paulette. High school sweethearts. He went to your junior and senior prom. You went to his senior prom. And except for a few times when you got fed up and broke up with him, yours was an amazing, amazing relationship. He proposed to you on Christmas Day, and you thought it was a joke until your parents showed up, and then you realized that what you thought was a fake ring was a real ring. And you were married on July 2nd, 1967 at the Blackstone Hotel. He loved being a husband. He loved his friends that he carried throughout his life. He loved being a dad to Joey and Annie. I loved that he would watch cartoons with you. Nick at Night, Car 54, Three Stooges. He taught you how to drive long before it was legal for you to drive. He was cool. He worked a lot. But your mischievousness as you were growing up paled in comparison to his. So he was always, always accepting. But deep down inside, he taught you that manners count and manners were important. And that family time, even at the restaurant, was incredibly important. He worked for himself because he only took orders from his customers at tables. He wouldn't take orders from anyone else. He was always fun, always understanding. He recently said, I have the very best family. I have the very best family. And he loved it. He loved his son-in-laws, Michael and Scott, like his own. And you were both so great with him. And he loved Sunday night dinners with his family. He took care of a foster son before he even had children. He took care of Otis and Lester. Otis, a cook from Mississippi. Lester, who worked for his father. He treated them as if they were his own. Two black men. Two hardworking men. As a papa, he was silly. He'd tell you stories. He'd drive you places. He'd pick you up. He liked doing things. He loved his Corvette. After school, he'd ask, how was prison? He was a train buff. He loved overnight camp at Interlaken. He was the youngest camper ever to attend camp and made friends with everyone. He loved history. He loved telling stories. There's a beautiful quote by Elie Wiesel that says, why did God invent people? And the answer is because God loves stories. Howard wasn't much for institutional things like religion. He did everything his way. He never looked for credit, but culturally, he was incredibly Jewish and proud of it. I love that he made up fun expressions to prayers. I think when we sing Aleinu and we say Ushemo Echad, and his name is one, I might never listen to that prayer the same way anymore. And I really loved that after Rosh Hashanah services at Beth Hillel, he'd take everyone to Baker Square. Now that's the right way to welcome in a sweet new year. And I really love, Joey, that you were a softer version of him and that you tamed him and you made him do anything. He went into hospice on Tuesday and died on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. He fought for years COPD and sleep apnea. He had a leaky valve, which led to a weak heart. He fought for as long as he could. He worried about everyone, but he made sure over the last few weeks, over the last few months, that his family was taken care of. He made sure that his customers were taken care of. He put everything in order. Perhaps he knew that this day would come. He did not want a sad funeral, and he didn't get one, that's for sure. He wanted a celebration of a really good life, and you guys made that happen. He wanted, unbeknownst to all of you, he wanted to donate his tissues and organs to Gift of Life, and immediately after his death, they took over, and after a series of questions, he was able to give the ultimate gift. He wanted to be cremated. You've made that happen. And you've honored him. He was a man by his own choice who never grew up. Maybe he had the right idea all along. He enjoyed the ride for as long as he could. And baby, it was a great ride. He showed up, and he showed all of us how to simply be yourself. To not take life too seriously. So I hope and pray that all of us can carry on his quirkiness, his love of family, his love of Jethro Tull and the Doors and jazz and classical music. Up here in front, you'll see some beautiful pictures. On the service supplement, you'll see a beautiful picture. As a rabbi, I often quote theologians. Theologians are really smart people who find some connection to religion, some connection to life by writing and by teaching. And there are some brilliant theologians like Martin Buber and Franz Rosenzweig and Pastor Martin Niemöller. But the theologians that I like to quote the most are the great theologians of Simon and Garfunkel. They wrote a song called Bookends. It's the shortest song that they ever wrote. And it's taken me 30 years as a rabbi to truly understand that a funeral is a bookend. We put a life between those two bookends, and it contains the life. But like bookends on a shelf, things go on after the bookend. You keep adding to the shelf. You keep adding to the picture by adding more things. It might not be within those two bookends, but it's all part of the same picture. So today is a bookend of an 80-year life from 1944 to 2024. But in their song Bookends, it only has a few lines. And those lines are perfect for right now. Time it was, and what a time it was. A time of innocence, a time of confidences. Long ago it must be, I have a photograph. Preserve your memories. They're all that's left you. It's taken me 30 years as a rabbi to understand that the reason I call Simon and Garfunkel theologians is because we're in the business of preserving memories. That's what a funeral's for. That's what any life cycle is for. We preserve memories. That was him. We preserve memories. We hold on to them. And the beautiful thing about them is that they continue to grow if we let them. If we close that bookshelf, if we close those bookends and we just leave them on the shelf and we walk away, that life is contained. But as we continue to tell stories, as we continue to look at pictures, as we continue to share the amazing, amazing antics of a lifetime third grader, we continue to stand on shoulders of greatness. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of the righteous, may Howard's memory truly be a blessing. I ask that you please rise. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Minucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina. God full of compassion, dwelling in the heights and in the depths, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved one, to Howard Teddy Kirschner, who has entered eternity. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting love. May he rest in peace. And let us all say amen. At every funeral I've ever officiated at, I've said the following words attributed to Ecclesiastes. The dust returns to the earth, but the spirit or soul returns to God. It's only the house of the spirit which we place within the earth. The spirit or soul can never die. I can only do my job because I really believe in that separation between body and soul. A body gives out. Howard's body gave out, his heart gave out. It beat as long as it could. But it just couldn't go on anymore. But his soul is now stronger than ever. And those two things, the soul is what made that body go. The only thing that's cremated is a body, not a soul. The soul lives on in beautiful children and grandchildren and relatives and friends. The soul lives on in stories and at University of Illinois and everywhere else. The soul lives on if we allow it to. And so we say Mourner's Kaddish on the back of the service supplement in his honor and his memory. We will continue to say Mourner's Kaddish at Am Shalom for the next 30 days. Friday nights, Saturday mornings at Torah study. Mondays and Thursdays that are almost daily minyan. His name will be recalled along with all who have died in this past year. Next Yom Kippur, at the Yizkor service, we say Kaddish in his honor and in his memory of a truly great man. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei kol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach Leolam Omei Omaya. Yit Barach V'yishtabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Roman V'yit Naseh. V'yit Hadar V'yit Taleh V'yit Talal Shmei Dekudsha Brichu. La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata. Tush B'chata V'nechamata. Damiran Be'alma V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya. V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. V'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved, and let us say, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Ve'yimru, yimru, amen. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way. May God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. Hamakom yenachem etchem, batok shar avilei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Amen. The last thing we do is we make a small little tear in a career ribbon that the three of you are wearing. For our hearts that are torn, we perform this act of kriya. I ask the three of you to repeat after me. Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, Melech, Haolam, Dayan, Ha'emet. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, Dayan, Ha'emet, the judge of truth. For it's God's judgment that is taken at this time, and we accept it. And now I invite you to turn around and look at this amazing group of people here. And I ask all of you to repeat after me these words, speaking them directly to the mourners. As is customary to say to the mourners, we say, may God console you. May God console you. With all who mourn. With all who mourn. In Zion and in Jerusalem. In Zion and in Jerusalem. Hamakomian Achemet, Hamatoksha Araf, Avilet Zion, Jerusalem. May God comfort you among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And then we say, now go forth in peace. Now go forth in peace to life. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the family will be returning to the Waldman residence at 3155 Violet Lane in Northbrook. They'll be together today following the service Saturday evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Memorial contributions to the American Heart Association would be appreciated. I also invite you just to take another moment and listen to one other song as the family leaves the chapel.